Welcome back, everybody. No, this is actually
Back.
our first returning interviewee, Wally.
Yeah, man.
How are we doing today?
You once. Here I am talking to you twice.
Yeah.
It's my honor and privilege to be on your show again. I've had such a good time the first time. I'm pleased to come back to your show a second time. Love you guys. Love what you're doing. Keep up the good work.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Wally.
that.
Appreciate
So, for the very little people that have not heard about you, you want to kind of give a brief recap of what is Supreme Gecko all about?
Anthony, I think he said brief, didn't he?
I was
Yeah,
just going to say the first one. Wally doesn't do anything brief. But stage is yours, man. Elaborate for everybody that doesn't know. God bless. Tell everybody who you are, what you do. This is why we're here, man. This is for you. Well,
Thank
for
you,
us,
Dad.
too. But,
But I know, it's not an 8-hour show, so I'll try to be as brief as I possibly can. Wally Kern, Supreme Gecko, my wife and I run it. My granddaughter is in the process of taking it over anytime this week. She's
There we go.
12 years old, and she enjoys the hobby as much. She enjoys the hobby as much as we do. So we're doing geckos and isopods. I've been in the hobby for about 22, 23, 24 years. It goes by so fast. And keeping geckos all that time. I've kept chameleons. I've kept bearded dragons. Never kept snakes per my wife. If I ever brought a snake in, she leaves. The credit card leaves with her. At the time, we had a dog when she made the statement. She said she's taking the dog too. So until that snake leaves the house. So I can't, that's a pretty firm black and white rule that she gave me. No snakes. Never kept spiders or anything like that. Fascination with spiders, but I have a terrible fear of spiders. But I kind of stick with geckos and isopods. I started keeping isopods about 7 or 8 years ago. Started doing the YouTube videos and just had a blast with it. And with the geckos taking off the last 2 years, Nanette has kind of taken over the isopods and doing all the maintenance and breeding and shipping. It just fits into what she's doing. We're very fortunate that we've been able to separate some of these duties or really privileges of working with these animals quite a bit, and that helps me out a lot so I can kind of focus on the geckos and social media and YouTube and TikTok and all over the place.
Well, you should ask her, what about a legless lizard? It's not a snake, but it is a lizard.
Yeah, she was asked that. We were recently at a show this week, Saturday, we were at a show, and somebody asked, when are we getting snakes? Ha, ha, ha. And then no. And they said, well, you could get a legless lizard. It doesn't have the legs. It's kind of like a gecko. Does it look like a snake? Well, yeah, it does. No legless lizards. Ain't gonna happen.
Nothing that slithers.
I think I was
right.
Thing, and they were saying that legless lizards are actually geckos or related to geckos in some way.
Somehow, some connection there, but let me ask you, Anthony. I'll give you Nanette's number. You can call her and explain the
Wally,
ecological.
Together, my wife gave me one stipulation too: no snakes. But the only thing is she ain't leaving. I'm leaving.
You bring a snake out of here, Mister.
Me and the snakes are
standing.
All right, so we're here today. We're here to talk helmeted geckos, aka was it Tarentola chazaliae? Or I can't remember the last part of it.
Chazaliae. Yeah. I heard it pronounced about 10 different ways. Nobody, I'm such a stickler with the genetic and the species name because I've kind of gotten myself into trouble with something like a skunk gecko. There's like 4 or 5 skunk geckos in the hobby. But there's really 2 geckos that I don't refer to by the scientific name, simply because everybody knows them as they are. One is viper geckos. Everybody knows the name viper geckos. Everybody knows the name helmeted geckos.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, was it, because we just had Stephanie on last weekend, because I know the Diplodocus galeatus is also known as like a helmeted gecko, right? So
there you go. That's a great example. Absolutely.
Yeah. Is a helmeted gecko the type Are they Nephurus species? A Nephurus or no?
They are not Nephurus
No.
or the knobtails. The knobtails of Australia are not the helmetids, other than, like you were saying, the Galeanus. The true helmetids, as we know them in the hobby, more commonly the helmeted geckos, are actually an African gecko. They're on the northwest side of Africa, right? Really on a really thin strip of land, and it's very, very, very unique in its environmental kind of habitat. It's very unique, and thus that transports over to how we should keep the helmeted geckos in the hobby. So very different animals. Nephurus, very, very, very dry, and a lot of people try to keep helmetids dry too, but there's some little quirks there as well. But Nephurus, more commonly the Australian geckos.
Yeah.
Also,
So, what does their natural habitat look like in Africa?
Absolutely. So, again, people will keep them as an arid animal, and you should under most circumstances, but there's a little trick to the helmetids, especially with the babies. So being on the coast of Africa, in Morocco more specifically, and there's different locations and characteristics of both locations, and like other animals, there's different appearances of these different locations, minor, nothing major. But being on the strip of land, right, almost a couple, 3 miles away from the ocean, they experience. Well, let me say this very quick. So and I'm going to go right into how we keep ours. We keep ours in a 10-gallon tank, sand based, just a real thin layer of sand. It doesn't have to be anything specific other than non-calcium sand. You can actually take play sand, sift it out. You don't really want a lot of the rocks in there. I don't want a lot of the rocks because I'll look at that tank every single time and see a bigger rock and say, oh, I've got eggs. So I sift out all of the bigger rocks, and now I have a fine play sand. Or you can do something like a reptile sand, anything without the calcium. So start off with that base of about a 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch deep of sand. And you can add rocks, you can add flower pot saucers with little notches out of them, you can add cork bark, you can add whatever you want to. Kind of build them up. They like to, especially, where they're found in Morocco, they like to sit in the crevices, down on the sand, kind of away from everything. They're not a big gecko. They're only about 3.5 inches long. So there's a lot of things out there bigger than them. So they like to hide during the day. They'll come out, they'll scurry out, they'll maybe eat, they'll come back, but they're more of a crepuscular, more of a nocturnal animal. So just getting back to my point, sand, some rocks, some cork bark, some flower pots, any kind of a decor that you want to use, build it up. They'll seldom use that decor during the day except for hiding, and then in the dusk and dawn times of the day and at night, they'll climb and they'll explore, and that just adds, enhancement to the whole enclosure. Again, we keep ours in a tent, and it works out really, really well. Screen top. Now, I've never seen mine climb, but a couple of accounts that I've read the last couple of years have said that they've seen their helmeted geckos climbing the glass. I'm wondering if maybe they're climbing the silicone. I've had other geckos.
That's what I was just thinking.
Geckos. Yeah, I've had viper geckos. I've told people they're non-climbers. Viper geckos are terrestrial. They're non-climbers, and then have somebody come back to me, nope, they're climbing the glass. And can you show me a picture? And they show me a picture, and it's the viper hanging on to the silicone, climbing the silicone like a ladder. So keep a screen top on your tank. And I'm going to get back to the screen top in just a second too, because I think it's super important. 90, 95 degrees in the warm area, on the warm side, about 20 to 25% of the enclosure. The rest of the enclosure can be in the 70s. It doesn't, ambient temperature. UVB, I've heard, or UV, I should say, I've heard both accounts. I've never used it. I've had success. And I don't know what really that means. Kind of, sort of. I would say use UV lighting. We have Arcadias over ours, and we have screen tops, and we have large openings in the screen top, not the fine mesh, and that allows more UV lighting to get down. Sometimes
Mhm.
they'll hide during the day. Sometimes they will come out and they'll bask during the day. I've seen it both ways. I think that you should have UV lighting on these animals. Just if nothing else is a benefit, and I think that they really do use it, and it benefits their behavior and their well-being. And when I say, questionable with success, I don't know how long these people that say I've never used UV lighting, I don't know how long they've kept their helmetids. I don't know how successful they were in breeding and getting, viable eggs. So I strongly suggest, using UV lighting. What else can I tell you before I get to the secret about helmetids? I think water dish, food dish. Let me talk about food just real quick. Food, crickets, mealworms. They love mealworms, and dubious, small dubious. Anything about the size of their head. They're good predators. They're not picky at all. They're not going to be something like a Periodora picta or something that just everything that they can find they're going to stuff in their mouths and eat. They're going to be a little picky as far as how much they're going to eat. They're a small gecko, 3 inches, so they're not going to eat a ton of food. We have a mealworm dish. We have, 2, 3, 4 mealworms in there all the time. After a couple, 3 days, we'll pull them out and add new mealworms. And calcium powder with vitamins, and it's a D3 powder as well. And we usually dust our insects. If we're doing crickets, we'll dust the crickets without the D3, just to get, more vitamins and supplements in them. I'm trying to think if there's any other thing. Let me get to it. Let me get to the key point I feel. And this is kind of what turned it around for me with helmetids. Being on the coast. So in your minds, kind of think of yourselves, that situation. You have an animal that's on the coast. So you're going to get different winds. You're going to get different winds coming in off of that coast, or maybe they're not coming in off the coast. Especially at night. At night, what happens is, I don't know if any of you are familiar with baseball, but Boston Red Sox. You might know where I'm going here, but I was at one Boston Red Sox game. I'm a Midwesterner, and I happened to hit, I was very lucky going to Fenway Park. And at Fenway Park, when the sun goes down, after a while, it gets kind of cool because they're, fairly close to the ocean. Fenway Park is close to the ocean. What happens is, occasionally, it's literally as if somebody has grabbed a blanket and pulls that blanket over the stadium with a bank of fog coming in. It's so cool to see that coming in. The same thing happens with them. So I think the issue in the hobby is sometimes people don't have the success with helmetids because they're keeping them dry. Water dish, food dish, you have to mist.
Sure.
So at least every couple of nights, every other day, we're going in just before lights go out, and we'll do a real fine misting on the enclosure. We're not going to soak it like we soak, crusted geckos, but we'll do a real fine mist so that they have that rise in humidity.
Okay.
I'll talk about incubation of eggs in just a minute, and I'll talk about the babies, but for babies, I think that's a huge piece to raising babies. I struggled with babies. I would get one to hatch out. I'd get two to hatch out, and I would have one die. Two hatch out, one die. I just couldn't beat that system for probably the first year or two. This is when I first kept them several years ago. And I talked to people about this, and we went back and forth with, foods and temperatures, and maybe you want to mist. So ultimately what I did was to provide a little bit more humidity is I have my babies in a 6-quart enclosure, and it's a long enclosure. So I have the hides and the food dish and the water dish and everything, but I have a piece of cork bark, and I treat them kind of like isopods. That cork bark, I throw sphagnum moss under that cork bark. So when I feed every other day my babies, I'll lift up that cork bark and I'll mist that cork underneath the cork bark, the sphagnum, and I'll keep that area. So half the time I'll find that I don't feel like the babies need, 70-80% humidity all the time, but I think they have to have an ability to
To
gradiate,
regulate,
to have
regulate.
a gradation, is that a word even? They have to have an area that they can go to absorb that humidity and rehydrate. That's my feeling.
Okay,
Since I started doing that, I haven't lost any helmeted gecko babies. Um,
nice.
Huge secret. It's not a secret. It's just something I was, you always have to think through this whole process. Talk to people, talk to other keepers,
Yeah.
find out, from the people that you buy your animals from, how are you keeping them? There's 1,000 care sheets on crested geckos. Find out from the breeder how they're carrying for their animals. Rarer the gecko, the more helpful the information from that breeder is going to be. And I've talked to helmetists. I never got a real good feeling of, and I don't think anybody was hiding anything for sure. Gary Hammond, a good friend here in Wisconsin, kept helmeteds years ago, and he got out of the hobby. And we talked and talked and talked, but it never clicked. And I research, and there's got to be a reason. There's got to be. So ultimately, talk, but go back to nature. Go back to nature and think about nature and what happens in nature. And I caught that fog thing. Fog comes in, rolls in, and it keeps the area humid, but it's only going to be for a short period of time. It's going to drop, and the next day it's going to be very dry again. So I started trying to give them areas that they could pick out and stay more hydrated,
Right.
and that has really worked for me.
Imagine
Nice.
that's a very unique environment to try to replicate. In my mind, it's almost like trying to replicate a cloud forest. You're replicating these I don't even know if they're precipitation patterns or they're just these moisture that sweeps in at certain points of the night. And like you said, I mean, depending on which way the wind is blowing, I mean, you can be getting desert winds coming over the hills, mountains rather, from Morocco, or you're getting it off of,
The
damn near
ocean.
blowing from the Rock of Gibraltar into your face. I mean, which
Yeah.
is who God only knows, salty, 80% humidity. I mean, it's just it's a very unique environment to try to replicate. And imagine you're not alone in having issues trying to figure that out. It's actually amazing that you did even think of that. I'm not so sure that many would have.
I
Uh,
I have a really good friend in the hobby, and you guys might know him, Ryan McVeigh. He
yeah,
was
Yep.
involved with Madison area, Wisconsin, Herp Society, years and years. The smartest reptile keeper I know. And there's a lot of smart ones out there. Very, very intelligent, very in tune with their animals. Ryan's the best. Ryan is the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've talked to him about things, and it's usually with him, it's like 90% right over, and I'll grasp little pieces with him, but then I'll kind of think about it later. And okay, he said this. What does that mean? He must have said that for a reason. And we had a conversation about, no chance I'm going to remember what animal, but he was talking. It had to be New Caledonia. It was Kahuas. He was talking about the winds coming in over the island. And he was saying, everybody looks at, Google Maps, and everybody looks at Google Scholar and gets rainfall and temperature information. Nobody looks at winds. Nobody looks at winds. When are the winds coming in, and when are they changing? When are they heaviest? And he said that probably has something to do with all of this. Obviously, there's so much that we can do in the hobby, even without thinking of wind, like the UV and
Yeah.
gradients, and matching cool down periods with warm periods, brumation, all this other stuff. No,
Yeah.
I don't know anybody that's talking about winds. So at the point he said that, was like, yeah, that makes sense. And then I went off, and I'm feeding crested gecko diet, not caring about thinking about trying to do anything with winds. But I think that I thought about it later with the helmetids and the coast, and heard the fog thing, and I thought, winds are probably bringing all of that in and making a big difference.
Yeah.
Um, so at that point, I changed out my screen top. I put in, the UV lighting, so the screens are pretty big compared to the mesh. I said that before, but it's worth repeating. So I tried to adjust my care a little bit to try to match that. And some animals don't need it. You can put a male and a female crested gecko together in a plastic box, and they're going to breed. But some animals, I think, require it a little bit more, and not just from a survival standpoint, but we need to try to start working more toward thriving. We need to make sure that these animals are thriving instead of just surviving.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, these screens that you have with the bigger holes, if anybody wanted to, or say was having issues with their helmeteds and they wanted to find these screens, are you making them, or are you buying these screen tops from anywhere in particular? Or?
Oh, I'm sure I found them on Amazon, 10-gallon, tank screen top. And what I tried to stay away from, and this is kind of a good practice for really, as long as you don't have small micro geckos that are, and you look at the adults, and, the adults won't get out, but maybe the little babies will. So kind of be careful there. But I don't think it's a bad thing to look for larger openings in the screen, in the mesh, a larger gauge. I don't know what that's called, but kind of look for that because I think it probably makes a difference for a lot of animals, and especially if you're using UV lighting. The tight screen weave is going to stop more UV light than a looser weave, larger holes.
Yeah.
Larger holes allows more through, right?
Yep. One other question for you too, before we go any further. What percentage UVB lights are you using? When you say you're using UVs for these guys, what are you using? Like a 10.0, or I don't know what Acadia sells, but like percentage.
Are you doing the desert one? Are you doing
I'm
the
not doing
deserts?
the desert one. No, I'm doing.
So you're
I
probably
don't
doing
think
the 6%.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I don't think it's called jungle. I have all the information. I'm good at keeping things in spreadsheets. So if I have to go back and oh my gosh, so I'll have little reminders and things, and I'll actually write dates on boxes and stuff like that. So I'll go back to my spreadsheets. There's like no room left anymore up here. I'm getting so old. So everything's in a spreadsheet, and it's not jungle. It's. I think you're right though. I think it's the next one up.
Yeah, it's probably like the 6%. Or I know I use for most of my Aussie stuff, I'm using either 12 or 14%. Because they need it. Like I've tried using what was it? Oh, that the one from VivTech. It was the
LED.
It's the LED UVB that he has.
Jungle.
Yeah, it was like First Call or something.
Yeah.
But no, my chauffeurs did not want to go over by it. I don't know if it just wasn't strong enough. But I replaced it with a 12% Arcadia bulb, and my female was always going under there. Like she would look for it.
I know we're talking about helmeteds, but I've got to stop you for a second. Let me ask you, and my goodness, talk to Ryan. This is something that Ryan eats up. He'll talk, he'll talk your ear off. But how big of an enclosure are you working with your you said Strophoros, right?
Mm-hmm. For that one, it's a 16 by 16 by 16.
So probably a little bit bigger than, a little bit bigger than most people with the 12 by 12 by 12. A lot of people use 12 by 12 by 12. 16, a little bit bigger. I wonder if it's the focus of the VivTech lights. And
and that's what it is. That's what I figured it was. I figured it was because it was a concentrated area instead of kind of a little bit spread out. So she wasn't looking for it. But once I put the Arcadia, I think it was like 12, 14%, and it's the linear bulbs, the T5s. So found it, and she was always just basking underneath it.
Perfect.
Because it's 16, 16, 16 it was for a pair. So make sure they have, because I had them in a 12 by 12 by 18, and I just wasn't getting any good results. So I had to move them up. And then next
Ryan can probably confirm this all, and I'm probably speaking out of my ear, but he'll know for sure. He'll be able to tell you for sure.
Yeah. I would love to get him on here and so we could talk some UVB. I actually literally just listened to him on the Reptile Gumbo podcast. He was just on there.
Done some work with some lights. I remember watching him on a podcast, and he made a really, because this is something, I mean, again, I've been keeping reptiles since I was a kid, right? And I've always wondered, I've always said, when we turn a light on and you go to the reptile tank, you're taking them from the middle of the night to the middle of the freaking day in a second. That's not normal, right? Like, reptiles need a period of time to warm up and to thermoregulate. Yeah. You just cut a light on in the middle of the morning, and this can't be right for them. Even now, I'll always go and I'll turn my regular lights on, and I'll come back in an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I'll turn the UVB on, and I go through this whole spiel. And then I stumbled across a video of him trying to, I don't know whether he was designing or working with someone to design, but they were coming up with this light that actually came on, that warmed up over a period of time. And that was the last I ever saw of it. I never saw anything again. But it was doing just that. It would almost, like a dimmer, it would reverse dim the UVB over a period of time. And I thought it was brilliant. I'm like, no one done this yet. And I haven't.
There's a couple. I said there's a couple people that are doing that now. I said you got Arcadia with the Luminize. They have where it's they control it with the app, and
right. That's just a regular LED.
No. It's UVB. They have both UVB and LED Luminize. Yeah, and it will literally, just like you said, it will just cut on just a little bit, and then by the time like 12 o'clock hits, it's fully on, and then it'll slowly decrease as the day goes as well. So once it hits its highest point, then it'll start dropping little by little.
I think that's huge. I think we're missing a huge. We're missing huge by not incorporating that in our keeping. Yeah. I watch my bearded dragons. I cut the lights on and they haul ass. They run. Boom. They run with it at 8 o'clock in the morning.
So how big of an enclosure do you have your bearded dragons in?
120 glass fish tank. Yep. They love it.
So same thought that we just talked about with the Strophaurus. You have a small 40-gallon enclosure, which is, what is that, 2 feet smaller than a 120 or 125 or whatever? You have a smaller enclosure, your light goes on, it's probably going to get at least half, if not more than half, depending on the light, of course, of that 40-gallon. A 125 is probably going to get maybe a third or less of that tank. So they're going to that. So you talk about the gradual increase. Like in nature, the sun comes up and gradual. If you have your bearded dragons in a, this is a gross example, but a 10-gallon tank, 20 inches long, they have no choice. No choice.
They just got to take it.
So it would be very, very, very important, I feel, to do that gradual increase to get them warmed up and accepting. And you have them in a 125. Maybe it's a little bit less important than, that terrible example that I just gave with the 20-gallon or 20-inch 10-gallon tank. But it's important. So maybe the key here is, if you're going to keep your animals in a small enclosure, you need to refine and be very specific with what you're doing. You have them in a 125. If you have a pair of Strophaurus in a 125, right? Well, you'd have like 20 of them in there, right? So
no.
You have your 125 and you have Strophaurus, another, terrible example, but they're going to eventually find that area that they want to get to help them, with their health. That's my feeling. Maybe they don't. Maybe I'm completely wrong and they'll never ever get there. But my feeling is that if you provide it, and maybe a 125 for Strophaurus is way bad example, but I think that they'll eventually find it. So the key here is that the smaller enclosure, the more fine tuning you have to do. The bigger enclosure, the more you can just turn it on and let her rip, kind of thing. Not that you should ever do that,
I know that. I feel terrible, but I work. I got a day job. It's like at some point, like, I gotta cut it on, guys. I feel terrible,
and and like I said, that's why I think like that Luminize
technology and Bluetooth outlets. I can't find anything that can really. It'll work with LEDs. I found a way to buy these Wi-Fi plugs where I can brighten and dim LED bulb, but it just doesn't work with the ballasts on these UV lights. It doesn't work. It just cuts on.
Yeah.
You know.
You just gotta, like I said, you gotta either rock with those Arcadia ones that they just came out with.
Well, now
Yeah.
I can't.
But I think Ryan's working on that as well. So he said he was working on a few things this upcoming year, and I think those might be one of them. So that'll be a good one.
He is. I talked to Ryan Saturday, but we talked mostly about kahuas and the melanistic. Anthony, this should get you going. Melanistic kahuas, and I tell you, I've got to put my coffee cup down for this one. So I was holding this jet black kahua in my hands, and the drool was coming down my chin and dropping on the floor. They are smoking hot. So
did you get to see them at Tinley?
I saw them at Tinley, and I have some pictures. I didn't want to share until he was ready to start sharing. But, seeing these and babies now, more babies are coming through. And we talked about genetics, and is this line? Is it, genetics? And we talked. So now you have two shows with Ryan, one on lighting and one on kahuas and melanistic kahuas.
Yeah, I saw them at Tinley, and I was like, man. And he was only, they were like $1,000. I was like, should I? Yeah, but I was like,
kahua.
Yeah. He's selling for like $1,000 for the. It was. Yeah, I believe they were like hit for. Yeah, I believe they were a hit.
Maybe they weren't the melanistics, but they were, through it. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think he said he's proving out the super form.
Yeah. I know Anthony right now has $2,000, and after this show, he's calling Ryan up and saying, "I want two."
Right?
Listen, it's like something I dream of. Like I heard him speak about him. I never got to see one. I've watched YouTube videos where people were at shows where they interviewed him and spoke about him. But I can't recall actually seeing the melanistic chihuahuas in his hand. I can't.
I had him there.
I've spoken again, like I said, I've spoken to people that have seen him or talked to him, or I just haven't. But man, I dream of it, man. Like I know it has to be there. I know.
Maybe there's a reason why the higher beings are saying, "Yeah, I don't want to really show you these just yet, Anthony. You're not ready for this right now. You're not ready for this.
You're not lying, and I'm okay with that. I'm still learning. I'm definitely not one to shy away from putting in my work, man. I don't want anything just handed to me. I don't want to. I have this mentality in my head, and I'm going to go off on a little tangent real quick.
Yes.
That these animals came into the hobby in a very small group and all looked very similar. And from that small group of animals, we have selectively bred, paired, done whatever we have, and made what we have today. If a hobby can do that, and a hobby can put in the work and learn and do all of these things, then I can do it on a smaller scale.
No doubt about it.
I can learn, I can selectively choose traits and pair them with animals and get my ultimate goal. Now, it may take a lot longer than just going to buy something, but I really honestly prefer to make these things my own. And I know I may just be banging my head against the wall. I know. And I know 100 people are going to probably tell me I'm wasting my time and there's faster ways around it. But I don't do this for anybody else. I do this for me. Right? This is for my personal satisfaction. I'm the one learning, and I need to learn on my hands. I need to learn on my eyes, and I just not that I'm taking anything away from anybody that goes and buys a $10,000 gecko and pairs it to another $10,000 gecko, and you instantly have $15,000 geckos. That's great. That's great. But in my head, I'm going to learn more going the other route. I'm learning what pair, what gene works with what trait, what characteristic, what I'm looking for, what I'm, the subtle differences and changes throughout development. I have 27 chihuahuas. I didn't buy a single adult. I was adamant about buying babies and watching them develop from the egg to adulthood. I want to know what every single one did and how they changed from when they popped out of an egg, arguably, until they're adults. They go through so many different changes that I wouldn't know what to look for if someone just said, here's an adult chewy, this is what it looks like now. I have babies that look like I don't know what and what I'm keeping or what I'm
Yeah.
pairing and growing out or selling. I would have no idea. So I had to start from the ground up. And
I kind of relate that to Periodora picta for me, and in no way at all did I mean that you're not ready for them as far as working with them. It's a financial thing. The higher beings are saying, if I show you one of those black kahuas, you're going to buy $10,000 worth right now. But getting back to your point, Periodora picta, I kind of after talking to Ryan Saturday, yesterday was Saturday. After talking to Ryan yesterday, and seeing how he was talking about the difference in color, but he can tell right away, right from hatch, that it's a melanistic.
Okay.
But non-melanistic and different colors. He showed me one that didn't have any markings. It was as gray and blah as you've ever seen any animal. It solid gray. No markings on that kahua. So I think it's a little bit like that with the kahuas. And Stone Gecko are doing some great things. LAC Herps are doing some great things. There's a lot of people doing some great things with the kahuas and going down one line, reds, going down another line, whites, going down reds with the white collar, which is super cool in the hobby right now. I think that it does take somebody like you that will look at it and say, I'm going to hold back. I'm going to hold them back. This one looks a little different. I'm going to hold it back. And I kind of try to do that with the Periodora picta, not to go off on too much of a tangent, but every flippin' Periodora picta that I hatch out, it seems like every one is different. I'm going to have 500 enclosures with one Periodora picta in every single one. It's a matter of balancing resources, your time especially, and managing these different groups. But that's what it's going to take. And I know, Anthony, you would do that.
well, like yourself with them, Wally, you are probably where I learned what real passion was for a species. I can't hear of these picta geckos without thinking of you instantly. The first one I think of every time, I'm like, that man loves those things. He will innovate anything there is to change or learn with those things. It's going to be Wally. Watch. Wally has an eye for these things. It doesn't matter how much they cost. It doesn't matter how popular they are, who wants them, who doesn't. He loves those things. That passion is what will ultimately lead to success, or lead to innovations or discoveries and more knowledge and data. It's
You can tell too in the hobby when you're talking to somebody that really has that passion. I have the passion for Periodora picta. I love my cresteds. I love the rare geckos that I'm working with. But Periodora picta, I tell you what, if I in the next 5 years, if I could hit on one animal, a pure red, a pure white, a black, something like that, it'd be like, okay, that's what I was working for the last 10 years. That one animal is what I've been looking for, and that's my passion with that project. And you can see other people that have that same project. You can see people that are, here's a lily white, buy my lily white, and that's what any hobby business is going to be like. But you can also see the people that are really passionate about advancing and moving forward. I'm going to bring a name to you, and you guys are going to know this name, Bobby, from Gecko Cove, working with the gargoyles. He has a passion for, I'm going to move this forward. Beautiful animals out there already, beautiful animals all over the place in the hobby, but I'm going to take this and I'm going to just move it a little bit forward. It's fun to meet and talk to people like that.
absolutely
For you guys too.
like if you get to be a kid again and almost get excited about what an adult would tell you is impossible. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how to explain it, but like when you're a kid and you're just talking about, fairy tale stuff and pet dragons and I'm going to have a dinosaur and all this crazy stuff, and your parents, yeah, sure you are, Like you could do that as an adult with these things. And like everyone else could think you're nuts and tell you it's not going to happen. You find that real passion, that childhood joy again, and there's nothing like it, man. Who cares? I mean, in all honesty, I hope neither of us don't succeed, but if we could stay this happy and this entertained and engaged with a dream, so be it.
Yeah.
And you have to have kind of a little bit of a vision in your mind too. You have to have that desire to not give up until you're going to get to your goal or get close to your goal. and keep working and working and working toward it. And that's hard. I think that in today's, world, everything is the 5 second TikTok. Okay, I'm done with it. 5 seconds later, I'm on to something else. And I'm not, downgrading anybody for doing the whole animal thing as a business. That's super cool if you can and if it works for you, as long as you don't sacrifice ethics for the sale of animals. But
Exactly.
I think it takes special people to say, forget money. This thing that I'm doing over here, I'm going to keep at it until I get what I'm looking for. Ryan obviously is dedicated. He's not in it for the money at all. They have a company to do that part of it. So his passion with the animals is laser focused.
Oh yeah.
I commend him, man. I commend him. I commend anybody that does anything like that. Even Jay with these species and things that he's working with. And Jason doesn't give a crap whether the hobby thinks something's popular or not. He likes it. He don't give a crap if anyone don't even know what it is.
That's right.
Yeah, that's why I got crazy stuff coming. And it's like, nobody's like, what is that? I was like, it's just something I like, because I said, I always say, like, on every episode now, I was like, I got Homophilus fasciata coming through soon. Those Tanzanian velvet geckos. I got a 1.3, and I found another person that has one that he might be selling me, so I'll end up with a 2.3. So I can at least split do a 1.2 group and then a 1.1 at least. Then I just have different bloodlines for that. And then, of course, my Cerdactyls.
It gives you a couple of different enclosure options, missed a little bit more in this one, and a little bit, do different things. Yeah.
And right now, my whole goal or idea with caring for them is treat them like an electric blue day gecko. They both come from Tanzania. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of go from there. I've read it. There's very little on them right now. I found some different forums where I got some good information, printed it all out. It's in my book. I'm ready to go with them. And then, like I said, and then Cerdactylus. I'll say it every episode. There's over 300 species of Cerdactylus, and they're not big in the hobby. I don't know why. And there's just so many. There's so many beautiful looking ones, like the ones we saw last week with Stephanie. Her the Pingo Forest gecko, just amazing. Like I said, I have Cerdactylus triatus coming through pretty soon. Should be here probably September or October. I said I have my nebulosis as well, and then I'm going to get more. I'm going to grab more.
For them, you have me right at the top of your list for the babies, right?
I got you, Wally. Definitely, you already know this.
You heard it here, folks. You heard it here. No, seriously, at some point, I'd love to get some of those from you. What a beautiful animal. What a beautiful animal.
Yeah. Very elegant.
Yeah.
They're just real elegant to me. I don't know why, but they just are.
I made the mistake of, I didn't make a mistake of purchasing Cerdactylus pangensis or Zubricus, whichever one it is, but I bought a 4-4 when they came around a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago. Yeah. 4-4, and the males immediately all died. And more research, and I found out that that's fairly common for the males to die. I don't know why, but females are doing great. Wild caught. Females all, let me eat. And they're doing great. So Jim McDermott, I was able to hook me up with a male. We're so far off topic now, it doesn't matter.
It is what it is.
I'm sorry about this, guys.
We'll get back to it in a little bit.
I'll keep this really super short. And so Jim hooked me up with the male. I moved them into our bedroom. So all my facilities in our basement. We have a leopard gecko on our first floor. The second floor is my day geckos, gold dust, and a velvet gecko. Nothing up there. Anyways, in our bedroom is 3 day geckos, giant day geckos, and they run around, they play, and it's super fun to hear them little chip, 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 chip. But I have another tank of the Cerdactylus pangensis. So at night, as lights go off, about a half hour after the lights go off, I'm not going to do it for your show, but it's about as loud of a squeak as you can.
Oh, yeah.
You've heard it, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
From your Cerdactyls? So it's like, Wally, your animals are talking. Tell them to be quiet.
Oh man, yeah. I'm definitely not looking forward to that part. Like when me and my old lady move in, I already told her, I was like, "You ready for this?" Because those things are loud. And
Yeah,
then we're getting
wow.
frog. Yeah, and we're about to get frogs too. So I was like, I hope you're ready for all this because you might not be sleeping for a while till you
Love,
get used to this.
I love the sound things make. That's half of what drive. I mean, I don't want to go on one, but when I was a kid, I would start keeping animals and building enclosures because these were places I dreamed of being, right? So I used to love Jimmy Buffett. I loved Indiana Jones. I always dreamed of being this crazy geologist, archaeologist, traveling sailor, right? So I would build these little jungles or deserts and these crazy things in these enclosures, and I sit in my room at nighttime and listen to the crickets chirp or things banging on the walls and scraping and scratching and just dream of being in these places. And I come in my room now and have a couple frogs and some of these geckos make noises, and I couldn't live without it. I guess, man. I love the whole thing, man. There's a Jimmy Buffett song called "Cowboy in the Jungle." Damn, man, it's my life, man.
I think it's a different way to appreciate the
Mhm.
animals and to stay more in tune. It's weird, but my wife, again, she'll hear them and she's good at it. I'm just kidding with her complaining or commenting. I shouldn't say complaining, but she'll listen to and oh, they're talking again. But for me, it's like okay, they always chirp 4 times. Listen, listen. All of a sudden, the last 2 days in that, did you hear their second chirp was a little bit less volume than their first, third, and fourth chirp? Listen, see if you can hear it too. See, their second chirp is quieter than their other chirp. It's crazy, man.
Awesome. It's a different
Oh
world.
man,
Uh,
yeah,
People
it
think because
really
we don't
is.
speak the same language as animals or something, that they're any less intelligent or that their social structures are any different than ours. It's these are living creatures, man. They wake up, they sleep, they hunt, they eat, they pair, they give birth. They do everything that the human race does, just in a different world, if you will, man.
They have different ways to attract the opposite sex. They're chirping. I had the velvet shirt opened up to my navel with the gold chains. Little Saturday Night Live. So
There
that's how
you
I
go.
got into that. Please, please, viewers, don't try to envision that.
Yeah, man. So back to
Oh
these
man.
helmets, if we have to.
Yeah.
What drew you to them? What after everything you've kept for as long as you've kept geckos, what made you say them? That's what's next.
um, a couple of reasons. Number one, they weren't in the hobby. So we went through a period of probably 10, 15 years ago. Again, I've got to bring up his name. Gary Hammond had palmatids, and it was like, yeah, Gary, you've told me about palmatids a million times. I know they're super cool, excellent, but they're all over the place. Why should I keep palmated geckos? Oh my gosh, look at these Nephurus, these Australians. Oh my, look at Stropurus. Look at how cool. Nobody has these, Gary. You should be keeping. But Wally, these helmets are, and then all of a sudden they weren't in the hobby. Hey Gary, do you have any more helmet? No, I don't. I'm not working with them anymore. So then it's a period of years. Nobody had them. Nobody had them. Um, I had this is a funny story, but I traded with a good guy from Josh's Frogs, and um, I actually bought a pair. I bought a pair from somebody, and it turned out to be two females. So then I had to look for a male. Who's got a male? And that was a year, at least maybe 2 years. Who has a male? Couldn't find. And then somebody comes to the table, one of our reptile shows, and a good customer, he always comes, but he's got isopods. And I'm talking about animals, and somehow the conversation went to helmetids, and he said, "Oh, I've got a pair, and I don't really want to keep them anymore. Maybe you want to keep them and do something else. I'd love to, and I'll give you babies if you want." And so we worked out so I could get the male and the female. So now I had the male and two females, and one of the females died from my first ones. I think they were a little bit older. So now I'm back to 1-1. Then I talked to Josh's Frogs, and I got another female. Um, I think Josh's Frogs might be, if there's more than Josh's Frogs breeding helmeted geckos, I'd be surprised. So it's a little bit of the rare factor going on. Not a lot of people are, so it's not, oh, these are super rare, so this is going to be, ego. And this is rare. We're going to lose this animal to the hobby. And I've lived this with Pachydaculus, so many Pachydaculus that I had and some that I didn't have and thought, oh, they'll always be available. And all of a sudden, Pachydaculus aren't out there. So now I have that kind of hoarder's mentality with, oh my gosh, we're going to lose this animal. So I got the helmetids and learning and trying to do things. And now I have, I'm getting eggs, and I just hatched out a baby a little bit ago. And now I'm kind of rebuilding on, what I did probably about 6 or 7 or 8 years ago. So a lot of the reason why I am trying to move forward with helmetids is to keep these animals in the hobby. And if anybody else is doing the same thing, that's where we need to come together and share and do better as a hobby to communicate, what we're doing differently. And if one person has success, let's talk about your house and how humid it is and some of the things that you're doing different than I am. If you're having success, or if I have success, I'll absolutely share it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So for like when you're doing your breeding and stuff with them, right? Because you said that they're kind of like on the coast of Morocco, right? So do they have to have a good solid brumation? Because being on the coast, maybe you get those cold winds that come through during the wintertime.
Later.
Yeah. So do they need a harder brumation than most other geckos would?
I didn't find it to be any different than what I'm doing with most of my other geckos. So my Pachydaculus, my arid animals, my leopard geckos are a little bit different. I really baby my leopard, and I don't know why. I just always have, and it's always worked out. But I baby my leopard geckos, and I turn down the heat and the lighting too, for a period of about 3 to 4 to 5 weeks. Every week it'll go down a little bit more. The heating and lighting will narrow down to probably about 6 or 7 hours a day. But my Pachydaculus, and the heating goes down from 85 hotspot. I just turned it off, and the whole tank will get down to about 67, 68, and it stays like that the whole winter. With Pachydaculus and some of the other animals, I haven't really, Nephurus, I haven't really done a major cool down with them. I just turned them down. I'll shut down their heat, but they're not going to get the extreme temperature. So they're going to stay in probably the low 70s without a heat spot. I feed very minimally, and I don't even know, that might be a mistake, but I always have fresh water, and I'll throw food in, maybe a couple of mealworms every couple of weeks or so, just to give them something. Leopard geckos, nothing. The heat goes off. When it finally goes off, till I turn it back on, they get nothing at all for 3 to 3.5 months. But I kind of, with the Pachydaculus and other rare geckos, I'll mid-70s and just a tiny bit of food.
With like incubation and stuff, then how do you incubate yours? What mediums you're using for that one? What temperatures you doing for that? And how long do they take?
I'm going to adjust. I just lost my lights. I'll go ahead and adjust the lights while I kind of talk through this.
Yeah.
My timer is set for 7 o'clock. For incubation, maybe I can do the two things at once. Maybe not. For incubation, what I'll do is I have little hatch boxes, so they're probably about 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches. I'll fill them with I have Supreme Hatch material, but it's a clay-fired material. A lot of people, Pangea has a similar product, Rapace has a similar product. I'll put that in the bottom. I'll get that wet, not soaking wet, but wet. And then I'll take a bottle cap. I'll put more of the dry, I don't know if you can see this, or it helps, but I'll put more of the dry material in that bottle cap. And this when it's in the bottle cap, it's just meant to stop the eggs from rolling anywhere.
Yeah.
So bottle cap, more Supreme Hatch material, or that clay fired material, and then the eggs right on top. And then I'll take the eggs and I'll put it into the hide box and have enough room that the eggs can expand. I'll take the top, put it on, I'll mark the date, I'll mark the species, put it in the incubator. The incubator right now for us is set at 81 and a half, I think, right now. And generally it's about, about 70 to 80 days for the
That's not bad.
helmetids. So
That's not
pretty,
bad at
pretty
all.
stable. So, as time goes on, that material sometimes will dry out. And the cool thing about the clay fired hatching material is that if you wet it down, it goes from light color to a dark color, as you guys might know. But then as it dries out over time, it'll start turning lighter again. So I'll take a diffuser bottle, one of those with the knob like this, and I'll put that diffuser bottle in the corner so I don't splatter the eggs or get them wet. And in the corner, I'll add some water to hydrate the spring material. Yeah.
People are looking for this material. You sell it on your website, right? You offer this right for sale on your website, and probably user bottles too. You guys could check out Wally's website. He sells just about anything you guys need to be successful with geckos and isopods, man. Honestly, check out. Great prices, extremely competitive, awesome products.
We have them priced for the hobbyist. We're losing money on every item that we sell, but we make it up in volume that we sell. No, that doesn't sound right.
You also because I was looking on your website, you do fire brats as well now.
We do. That's been a huge plus to our facility. And I tell you what, a lot of the foods that I raise myself in our facility and feed from our bug room. I have a small bathroom, half bath size. It actually was the half bath to the daycare center before I stole the daycare center from my wife. But that little room I have, with our dubias, and I put our crickets in there when we get crickets in, and we have dwarf whites, and we have mealworms growing, and we have all kinds of stuff, and peanut beetles, and we have fire brats. So a lot of these foods I'll keep on hand to feed occasionally to the geckos. But I tell you what, if in the middle of winter or like now in the summer, hey, I hope you don't mind, Rainbow Foods, I need small mealworms. Yeah, it's kind of hot. We're not going to be able to ship for about 2 to 3 weeks. What? Yeah. What? And we're ordering 40,000 micro mealworms a month. If I'm out of micro mealworms, I'm done. So a lot of these foods that I'm raising up, especially micro mealworms, the fire brats now, are an addition to an occasional treat that I'll feed. Peanut beetles, another good example, are a good food to feed occasionally as a treat, something different. I like to see the animals chase down fire brats. It's super cool. But more importantly, it's my backup. If I ever can't get a supply of small mealworms or large mealworms, I have something that I can go back to. Very, very, very important for us.
Nice.
Weren't you breeding mealworms for a while? I thought I remember watching a video and you designed or had some sifters that you guys were selling or something, and you were breeding mealworms, or at least showing videos on how to breed or keep mealworms.
Yep. We do. Like I said, we breed dubias, we breed peanut beetles, the fire brats, dermestid beetles, dwarf whites. We use dwarf whites for our micro geckos as well. Dwarf whites, great. Take a dwarf whites, put a piece of potato down, deli cup, scrape the dwarf whites into the deli cup, put the whole deli cup in the tank, and watch the little micro geckos go crazy. Small newborn day geckos. Oh my gosh, dwarf whites. So what else? Dubias, mealworms. So we're actually in the process of raising all of those animals right now, all of those feeders right now. So we have, now again, we'll buy 40,000 adult mealworms a month as well. We'll put about 35,000 in the fridge, and we'll feed out 5,000 in a week or so. More than every 2 or 3 days. But also I have pans of mealworms kind of in different cycles going all the time. And it's one of those things where, we'll feed the bug room and we'll throw in a potato and we'll throw a carrot in there and just let them go. Now, I'll pull out the pupa and I'll raise them separately. Otherwise, the mealworms will tend to eat the pupa. And then once the pupa hatch, I'll put the beetles into another container and we start another cycle. That's worked really, really well. So again, in a pinch, I can go and grab, probably 2, 3, 4, 5, 10,000 mealworms just from me going in every a couple of times a week and throwing a potato in, and really not doing much more than that. It's such a huge safety net for us. I can't emphasize it more because, again, if we're out of live foods for some of these geckos, we're
Yeah,
People
especially
don't think that, like they're just so cheap. I can always get them. Well, you think that until the weather's too hot, too cold, someone's out of stock. There's a million reasons on why your supply could literally just stop. And if
yes.
you have a significant collection, anything of like I'm sure we do, a few hundred geckos or more, it's like you can't just like it's not an option. Some of these things, they can eat the mix is a different story, but some of the insectivore species geckos, you have to have that safety net, like you said. There's got to be a backup plan, a plan B, and a plan C, if you will.
yeah.
And when you said that, I've thought that through and safeguards and everything, you give me far more credit than I deserve. I have so many bad experiences that I can share with people to say, don't flip and do what I did. So obviously, I'm raising all of these mealworms and dubias and things like that. Everything other than really crickets. I don't like raising crickets, but I'm raising everything because at one point I really messed up and I didn't have a plan B or a plan C. So you go through that one time where you don't have food for a couple of weeks and you're scrambling and asking friends and driving to Chicago to get 1,000 mealworms because nobody else has them. That changes your habits and it sets in motion some kind of a contingency plan so that you don't ever have to go through that again.
Absolutely.
You start thinking about the care. We could can a leopard gecko go without a week or two without mealworms or crickets or something? Sure. Could it go a month? Yeah, sure. It really isn't going to matter that much. Can a baby Strophaurus go a month and a half without any food? Oh, heck no. Right?
No.
So you start thinking about what can I do to safeguard against that ever happening again. So I have tons of bad experiences that I can share with people to help them not make the same mistakes I did.
It's unfortunate for you, but very fortunate for everyone else.
Right.
Again, one of the things I love about your videos is when I watch and you're like so open about the things that you failed with. Like, guys, don't do this. Like, I cannot emphasize enough how much you cannot do this. And it saves us, the people out here, a lot of headaches. And it's a very unique teaching method that you have. A lot of people like to hide their failures. Again, I know we spoke about this last podcast, but it's the truth. Nobody's really as open as you are about the failures you've had, and helpfully, it's led to a lot of our successes. I literally keep half of these things because of you, man. I watched your videos with breeding a lot of these things, and I was like, man, they're easy to buy. They're easy to buy. I could just buy them things, man. And then I'm watching your videos, and I'm watching. Like for years now, I've been watching your videos, and it's always, you don't put that hard spin on it. You make it doable for everybody. And I said, well, damn, one day I'm like, I might as well. The man makes valid points. Like, what if something happens, or this happens, or that happens? I'm gonna need these things, man. So
Yeah. Especially y'all being on the East Coast where it gets a lot colder. I was gonna say, do you like before winter really kicks in, do you buy extra just in case?
We watch. We're constantly, and just like probably everybody else that sells animals through the mail, ships animals through the mail. Just like everybody, we're all probably looking at this week's weather, next week's weather. We're here, Supreme Gecko. We're in Wisconsin. We're in Milwaukee. We're not, like Green Bay frozen tundras of Lambeau Field cold, but we're pretty cold here in
Yeah,
Milwaukee.
you're still cold. You got snow, so yeah.
So we're constantly in immediate touch of the weather. We know this week's weather today, tomorrow, and the next day. We know next week's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday temperatures. So that plays with our shipping. I'm so sorry, but for the safety of your animals. But it
Yeah.
also plays for, and that's Nanette's side. She does such a great job with that. And people are so tolerant and accepting and caring for their animals more than anything, as you guys, I'm sure, know. From the other side, from the inventory manager side, I'm looking at temperatures. Hey, Nanette, what are the temperatures? Can we ship? Yeah, well, cool. No, we can't ship. Okay, how long is it going to be cold? Now I'm thinking, okay, my supply is probably a week or two. And to your point, my supply is a week. I am not going to get stuck. Let's order now. The weather is good. Let's get them in here. Let's get a month's worth of supply. What we do, and I don't know if you want me to go into detail, but real quick, what we do
Oh,
is we'll
go
get
ahead.
40,000, keep out 5, throw the other 35,000 in the refrigerator. 2 months. Every 2 weeks, if we don't use, we bring them out and let them, I don't know, rehydrate with carrots and wheat for a day or two. Then we put them right back in the refrigerator if we haven't used them. So we're going
Okay.
through that constant. So in the winter, we might order a little bit more than normal, and we might order sooner than, in the spring and fall. And the same thing happens with summer, obviously, as well.
I wish I could.
A lot of worms, man. 35,000. That's a lot of.
Yeah.
They sell you in a burlap bag. You get a big old burlap bag.
Yes. So we've refined our process. And again, I love talking about this. And I feel like maybe 2% of your viewers and my viewers are maybe going to catch this point, but it's so important for us as we move forward. So we'll get these burlap bags of mealworms. Well, literally, so it's burlap bags and it's newspaper in the middle. So we'll take a burlap bags and we'll dump it into a 70 quart. And we do that because burlap bag and we shake, and then we'll take and throw it to the side, and then the paper, shake. So this big 70 quart, it has mealworms hitting. So instead of using like a flat 27 quart, and now half the mealworms are on the floor and in my hair, and we'll use this 70 quart, and that'll contain, once in a while we'll see one jump out and we'll have to pick it up, but it really contains them, and it helps us go faster. Bag open, dump, papers, shake off, gone. So we can unload 40,000 in just 5 or 10 minutes or so, instead of trying to get them off without shaking them all over the place.
Now, do you feed them right when you get them too? Do you feed them before you put them in the refrigerator?
Never. So
Well,
you were just talking about definitives, like I'm not saying yes all the time or never, but this is a never. This is a never for us. When we get feeder insects in, we're never feeding. And I know this might be contrary to a couple of wonderful breeders. I hope they're not watching this, that do feed out of the box. We just don't do that. And it's kind of, ingrained in me right from the start that when we get them in, mealworms. So we'll take mealworms, and I'll talk about crickets in just a second, but it's going to relate 1,000%. Mealworms come in, 5,000 on the shelf, other 35,000 in the refrigerator paper so that it absorbs some of the excess moisture, so they don't get too wet in the fridge. Oh my gosh, nothing worse than opening and you're expecting, I only have 5,000 left, and it's all water, Now what do I do? So on the shelf, wheat, I'll sprinkle the wheat, and I'll throw a carrot. We'll actually cut the carrots up and put the carrots, around the container in a 27 quart container. I usually don't keep them over something like oatmeal or wheat bran. I'll feed the wheat bran. It's a big difference. Folks. We don't keep them over wheat. We feed the wheat to them because I know how much to feed. I've got an 1.5 inches of mealworms, so that's going to be a half of a 16-ounce fruit fly container deli cup. So I'll feed a half of a cup, and tomorrow morning it's gone. And I know about a half of a carrot, 3/4 of carrot, and the next morning it's gone. So all I have tomorrow, all that I'll have when I'm ready to feed those animals are gut-loaded mealworms with the carrot and the wheat. And there's a big difference when they come in to when we're feeding them the next day. And I'll take a sifter, and I'm trying to do this on camera. I'll sift it out. I'll dump out the frass, and now I have clean mealworms. I'll put into another container and just a big deli cup, and I'll just walk through and feed those gut-loaded, clean mealworms.
Nice.
Make sense?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Cool.
I feel like so many people put faith in the distributors, or because the bag comes with a little piece of, I can't even really say that I've always had them come with carrots, but crickets and the potatoes, and people are like, oh yeah, they came with food. They're good. I won't feed anything. I mean, that's another huge reason why I raise all my own stuff, but I won't feed anything until I know they've metabolized what I put in them. Like it's just not an option. Like not
Yes.
happening.
So you're doing two things. You're doing, and I didn't mention the crickets, but you're perfect point. You're doing two things by keeping them at least a day or two away from feeding. Number one, they're coming in and we don't know what they were eating before. It's probably grain. It's probably some kind of grain. That's okay. We're getting most of the protein. We're getting most of the, supplements and everything. But so number one, you're clearing their guts of all of that, clearing it. 2 days they're going to eat something, that gut is going to be cleared of what they were eating before. Number two, you're filling that gut with carrots or zucchini or squash or oh my gosh, I love Halloween. Why do you love Halloween? Do you like to dress up? No, I love the pumpkins. Give me all. Joe down the block, can I get your pumpkins? You are really weird, Wally. I know. Let me get your pumpkins.
Yeah. Oh, trust me. Anytime I'm at work, I always tell my kitchens, save me all your veggie and fruit scraps, please.
Yes.
They're like, why? I was like, just put it in a Ziploc bag for me. Don't ask any questions. I'm your supervisor. Go ahead and do it. I'll pick it up later.
Also,
My
wife is so mad with the money I spend on vegetables and stuff. Be like I gotta get the organic this. I gotta get the this. Can't you just wash it? I'm like, well, I mean, I could, but
this is so much easier. Yeah, I do the same thing. I'll go to a Walmart too, grab some diced up squash. I like to use this broccoli slaw. It has like broccoli. I'll have some carrots and some other stuff in there that are really finely shredded, so it's a lot easier for them to eat. And then what Joe told, I was listening to a podcast. He's like, just make sure you always hydrate your vegetables, and then as soon as you hydrate your vegetables, boom, you're giving that to your feeders, so they're getting hydrated and nutrition at the same time.
Spot
they'll
on.
live longer. Yeah.
So you wanted, and here's another fact, and it's lost in the hobby. And some people are probably doing it, and some people are not doing it because they just don't know any better. But when we feed veggies to our animals, they are hydrated. Number one, good point. And number two, we'll wash those vegetables off, thoroughly before we start using them. Why do you have to wash them? Doesn't the grocery store do that? Maybe, but I don't want anything from a bug prevention standpoint being on those vegetables that I'm going to feed to my bugs, right? So I'm overprotective of that. We've got isopods downstairs. I'm sorely overprotective of those isopods coming into any airborne pesticides. Pesticides is too strong of a word, but anything that could impact them breeding or living, actually. And the same kind of holds true with the insects as well, the feeder insects. I'll wash the carrots. My wife and I will wash the carrots and the other veggies before we go ahead and feed them.
Yeah, nice.
I think a must. I bought maybe 4 years ago now, but I bought a bag of a spring mix and to feed my feeders and stuff. I wound up killing. I don't know what the hell was in it. Whether it was, some people have said it was, the calcium in crickets, and too much calcium will kill crickets. I have no idea, but I've always fed them calcium stuff with calcium, I guess, But I lost a whole bin of crickets, man, feeding this bag of spring mix one time. And I, to this day, have no idea what the hell happened. I lost a whole, but I didn't wash it. So I was assumed in my head, is it because you didn't wash it, you idiot? But nothing else died. My roaches didn't die. Nothing else died but this one bin of crickets. I'll never forget it.
And you don't know. You don't know if whatever, and we're speculating here, obviously, but you don't know if whatever was on, if something was on those veggies, if it was directed to control crickets
Yes.
rather than dubious. You don't know. I know that there's, like mosquito bits. I don't know if you know about mosquito bits, but in the isopod hobby, they're very important because any new container will get flying gnats, little tiny flying gnats. So you use mosquito bits, and those mosquito bits are directly eating the gnat eggs. And that's all they'll do. Just eat gnat eggs. Very, very isolated. Oh my gosh, don't they hurt the isopods? No, they don't care about the isopods. Don't they hurt the baby isopods? No, they don't care about. Don't they hurt any like springtail? Don't care. Just the gnat's eggs. So
Nice.
my point being that you can have something that's very, very specifically directed at a predator, insect that's eating crops.
And imagine lots of these farms, maybe out here in North America, where we're getting a lot of our produce per se. The cricket is a much bigger pest than a dubia is, right? There's probably not dubias out in these flyover states where we're getting our crops from, right? But there probably is a huge cricket and grasshopper problem,
Yes.
Right
Right
that's
on.
literally what my mind went to when that whole thing happened. I was like, I wonder if this thing was genetically modified to kill crickets. Everyone's calling me crazy. You're crazy. I'm like, maybe I am. Well, I'm telling you, something's off. They died in it. Something happened.
I think you're spot on. I don't know. I'm not that smart, but I think you're spot on.
Won't do it again.
Yes, one time. That's like you were telling me about the bad experiences sharing, just like you just shared there. It's that one time, and you're not going to do it again, and you will talk to people when the topic comes up. Hey, by the way, make sure that you wash your one bad experience, and you can now share that bad experience and help other people, hopefully.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, I preach wash shells for human consumption. Damn, I'm big into the whole fitness thing, man, and nutrition, and that's why I went to school for multiple degrees. But I preach it, man. I don't want to say that I know how bad pesticides and certain things can be for human consumption, but I assure you, our society wasn't riddled with the cancer that we have back when everything was grown organic and before there was pesticides and all these man-made chemicals. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to clean your produce, period.
Right.
For your kids, your children, your dogs, anything you care about, just wash them, man.
Yes. There's enough to worry about.
Hey, Wally, did you get that shirt at the Schomburg yesterday?
Can you see so the fit for today is NARBC. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
This is the 2022. I didn't get one.
Oh, okay.
I didn't get one this yesterday. I forget. It's one of those things where.
I was like, damn, I thought they had a gecko one this time. I was like, man, they didn't have one at Tinley. All they had were nothing but snakes. I really wanted
gosh.
I
think the one yesterday was frogs. It might have been frogs. We'll see it on Facebook, I'm sure, tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But I really like this one with the, I don't know if I don't want to show off my tummy, my gargoyle.
Yeah, that looks nice.
Thanks.
So how was Schomburg over there?
Schomburg was fun. We were fortunate enough, and Crystal, our granddaughter, was patient enough that we got to talk to a lot of people in depth about a lot of different subjects. It was a good show. It really was.
Nice.
We talked a lot about, surprisingly, our good friends from Scaled Up from Wisconsin that sponsored the show. They're running into some problems with new legalities about out of state bringing their animals into shows in Wisconsin and needing to be vet certified, confirmed that their animals don't have any problem. And the cost is astronomical to the vendors coming in. So they're working through that, and there's a couple of vets that were at the show, and we connected, and it was a good discussion. It's just kind of scary that it impacts them so much, so sponsor like that.
Did you go see Bobby?
I did. Talked to Bobby for a long time. We talked about gargoyles, obviously. We talked about his display. He has a very unique display, and
very nice.
I'll tell you what, if you viewers go to a show, if you've gone to shows, if you've done shows and you think you understand and know everything, you are sorely misunderstanding your situation and misjudging that. Go to a show always with an open mind. Again, we've done it for, this is how old I am. We've done it for 20 some years. I go to every show and I look around, and I tell you what I do is I'll find somebody's table that's doing something. Oh, Nanette, look at what they're doing with how they display their animals.
Yeah.
Hey, Bobby, do you mind if I just take a picture of your display? So
Very cool. Very
right.
cool.
So you see something different that's unique and cool. Ask the person, hey, I really like this. I might do something like this. Would you mind? And Bobby said no, but I'm going to do it anyways. He has deli cups. It's pretty cool. He has deli cups, and he has like a sticker, like a circle on top of the deli cup. I don't know if you've seen this. He has a little pull tab, kind of like the ice cream that we used to get in the little tiny cup, and you pull the top, right? So that top was his logo, and Gecko Cove, and you'd have to pull this up. It wasn't sticky or anything. You just had to lift it, and there's the gecko. Oh, that's kind of interesting. But I don't get it. Why are you doing it? It's harder for people to see. Well, if you do that, Wally, then the gecko is in the dark, and they tend to stay fired up for a longer period of time. Oh, yeah, you're right. So
it's
people, 22 years, and I didn't get that. And seeing Bobby do it was super cool. So, again, picture, and we might do something similar. We might do half of our animals that way and half, without the tops. And he also mentioned it kind of adds that curiosity, and it's a good starting point to talk about the animals for people.
It makes you stand out a little bit.
Exactly.
It makes people want to come over there.
Outstanding.
Our kid.
Yeah.
Have
you seen? Oh, go ahead, man. Go ahead, Ant.
Probably Bobby's second follower on his page since we started it, and I promise you, the kid has a knack. Right, Bobby is a very, very, very smart kid. We're actually, me and Jason are having him on. What, next week? We were supposed to have him the day before.
This
Thursday. He's coming on Thursday.
Yeah.
But I think the kid has an extremely bright future. The kid, I've watched him go from nothing, from having one gecko and knowing not a damn thing. His first couple videos, he sounded to knowing what he's talking about, to knowing how to decipher what's BS, what's not, and how to use logic and apply what will work for his set of variables, if you will. He's very observant. He's understanding. The kid, you watch, mark my words, the kid will be a name that will be a staple in the hobby in 10 years from now, man.
I 100% agree. And above and beyond all of that, and we don't know about tomorrow. Tomorrow, everything could change. But above and beyond that, I think he has the willingness to try different things. And above and beyond that, he has the passion to keep moving forward if the things that he tries don't work out. That didn't work out. What next? Let me try this.
And like you said, some of those cups, if you look, which I thought was brilliant today, I was watching the video, were the parents of the babies under the cup. Yes. The ones that were adults were just in the cup, the one that he had adults in. But if you went to the baby cups, the pictures on the cups were the parents to the baby in the cup. I thought it was brilliant.
That's really brilliant. Good right there. I didn't even ask him about that one. I just
thought it was pairings on next to the table. The kid is, and some of it, I'm not going to, expose anything or anything, but some of it I know where he got it from. They're little bits and pieces, which we should all do. We should all do exactly that.
We should never be offended if somebody walks up to your table and the next show they're doing something very, very similar to what you're doing. You should be honored and excited for the person that they're learning and trying to do things better. That's my feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the same with what was it? Have you seen South Tex Gex when they vend? Have you seen any of theirs?
No, I haven't.
So he does like a lot of lychees and gargoyles. The bacon line, right? So he does these or not enclosed, but the display units, but they're blacked out, and it's like almost, I forgot what he calls them, but you have to lift it open, and then there's another thing of glass right there, and then there's the geckos staying fired up. So it was really
that too. It's just Bobby has, it's where Bobby's
just Bobby's just a little bit different because he puts the parents on there. and it's like almost I forgot what it's just a printer, some kind of almost construction paper, kind of, and he just prints it all out. I told him, I was like, dude, I'm about to tap your head for a little while and ask how you did that, and you're gonna show me because I want to know because I would love to do that for the Chihuahuas. Just have the Chihuahua parents right there, boom. Because when you look at a Chihuahua, right, it's like my high pink and greens right now. They just they're just brown. You can't really be like, well, these are the parents, so this is what you're hoping they're gonna look like. But right now, there's like this little old brown gecko with some patterning. So
anything that we can do to help fire up these animals, we bring them to a show in a darkened container. I get to the show, I miss them. I try to do a little bit of a temperature change on them from home to a show. Anything that we can do. Now, having said that, sometimes they fire up. Woo, yay! They all fired up and they look really pretty. And other times they're all gray. Wow, look at that red that's really gray. What does this look like when it fires up? Oh, it looks a lot better than this. So to do anything to extend that period of time or even to get them to fire up, I'm all for. It's a little bit of a business ploy. I don't call it a ploy, but a business way of thinking about it. But more importantly, it's sharing what our beautiful, wonderful animals really, truly look like in their best potential.
Keeps the animals from being so stressed out with the 100,000
exactly.
just waving bags and sounds and noises. It kind of gives them a little security too, man. I mean, you got to think of your animals. And, let's be honest, you're not going home with an empty car. You'll probably be taking some of your animals back home with you. You should ultimately care about your animal's well-being before you even care about any sale. I don't need an animal dropping a tail at the show. I don't need an animal stressing out and God only knows what. You have to start, and it's a brilliant idea. Again, I will give that man credit for that until the day I've been my first show and one up them. But
and to be honest, you mentioned it, South Tex Gex. I'm sure he said who he had learned this from or used the idea from. It might have been them, but he was very open and
definitely. He will give you all the information.
And he probably said it, and my mind was like already a mile ahead of what Wally steal this idea.
Too, and I'm not trying to be a fanboy because I'm definitely not like a little weirdo fanboy of Bobby, not quite yet. But the kid's happy to do well. He wants everybody to do well together. He understands that a healthy hobby is made up of all of us being successful in one way or another, whether you're selling animals, whether you're selling information, whether you're selling products, substrates, ideas, and I mean metaphorically selling. But if we all can be good and support each other at what we have to contribute, it ultimately makes us all better, right?
Yep.
And he has that. He has that. And that's one of the things that I think is a gift with the kids, He's always been wanting to learn and willing to teach what he did learn, and I hate to say it, but it's kind of unique, it's kind of unique in the hobby, it's
it's a rare characteristic, and unfortunately, and I've been lately a part of some of the drama going on and trying to step in the middle and been pulled into some of this, but I think when you said, I'm not a fanboy of Bobby, I don't see that at all. What I see is you trying to build up and focus more on the positives, and we have too many negatives in the hobby, and it peaks and flows differently. But anytime we can give credit to somebody that has the emotions and passions and good animals and they're doing the right thing, we absolutely have to.
That's pretty much why me and Jason and I put this together, is we thought that there was so many people doing amazing things that weren't getting recognized. And you could scroll on any Facebook group and see nothing but drama. What about the good people that are doing great things? What about the people you're not talking about? What about the people that are producing what you dream of having? It's we need to redirect some of this energy, man. Give credit where credit is due. Build each other up, man. Help inspire, help teach. I mean, granted, not everybody can. Some people have egos, and we're not going to change that. But it doesn't mean that you have to become what they are. You know, I had a buddy one time, and he always used to say to me, and I'd get so mad when I was younger, and I had some anger issues and whatnot. And he'd always say, Anthony, why do you get so mad at with who they are? Why do you get so mad at with what they do? How about you just simply focus on becoming the change you want to see in other people? And I said, damn, Rich, right? It's kind of like the turn the other cheek thing without being so whatever. I don't have to turn my other cheek to be what I wish you just were, you know? I don't have to need you to do anything for me to be a good person and treat people decent. It's free. It's free. It's free to give credit. It's free to acknowledge someone for doing something. You don't need to be jealous. Jealousy is like having a bag of sand on your shoulder, right? Like you
Yeah.
walk around with this
Weighs you
person,
down.
you know? It feels good, right? Doesn't it feel good when you can tell another man how good he's doing at something? It does for
Yep.
me. I mean,
It
Oh yeah.
absolutely does. And you're absolutely right about, we could spend the next 4 hours talking about social media and the direction. And we could talk about the changes the last 5, 10 years. We could talk about the direction of social media. It's not going to change a doggone thing. But shows like you guys are doing will change. And maybe they won't. Maybe they won't. But maybe a Wally Kern will watch your show and maybe be less negative and more positive and maybe uplifted a little bit by some of the great things, some of the positive information that you're providing everybody. And then that will be, driving Wally Kern to be more positive, maybe himself as well. So I think that's what we have to try and try not to feel like we're so powerful that we can change Facebook and change Instagram to be 100% positive. That ain't happening at all.
I know I can't. I'm just here to give people a safe zone to learn and I want to learn with you. I want to learn
Red,
with
Yeah.
a
you. I ain't
great job.
here to
Yeah.
teach. I'm learning with these people, man. Let's learn together, man. I don't.
Yep.
Let's
That was
learn.
the whole point of this pod.
No ego.
Absolutely.
Get that
No.
information out there so people can make their own decisions
Yeah.
on
Let's,
whatever they want. Like you said, putting out those people that most people don't know, just give them a little spotlight so they can preach their passion, and and hopefully people get those words, like feel those words, and reach
somebody's
out to them, say, "Hey, great job in there. I love what you guys were talking about." Or they reach out to that breeder, say, "Hey, I heard you on this podcast. I really like how you talked about the geckos, and I want to help support you in any way, even if it's just a follow, a like. Maybe you buy something, maybe you buy some merch. It just like you said, the healthier the hobby, the more the hobby grows, right?
some people don't understand the one little girl, right? The one little girl that keeps a pet salamander, a single salamander, is just as important to this hobby as the man that's got a 10,000 square foot facility breeding 50,000 frogs. First of all, that one little girl is the future of the hobby, right? Second of all, the small fish, I don't know exactly how I've said this, but I've said this before, but it's all the little small fish in this pond that make up the hobby, right? Like no one person is the hobby. No one person is. Collectively, we are a hobby. You
Yes.
know, it's and I feel like that people are so scared to like, oh, I don't know how to say because I only keep one gecko, or you can learn just as much and probably more about with one gecko than the man with 200 can. You are just
Yes.
big enough. You are just as big as a part of this hobby and as big as a contribution to this hobby as, again, like I said, the man with 10,000 geckos in a 100,000 square foot facility. Man, every single person that keeps a reptile is part of this hobby. Every single person that keeps a reptile matters in this hobby.
I seriously, in all seriousness, I was thinking about this a lot last week. Exactly what you just said, and I don't want to play fanboy and all that. This is from the heart. I was thinking exactly the same thing. I'm thinking, I have X number of enclosures, and I'm trying to keep it as best. But really, am I doing the right thing? Joe and Sue and Peggy over here are keeping two animals, and they're keeping them, and they can watch their animals so much better than I can watch my Z number of animals. So much better. Am I really doing the right thing by keeping so many animals and not spending the time with every single one that I seriously have been thinking about that a lot lately, and trying to think how can I manage the animals a little bit better, and um, try to get back to the basics, and try to, and don't get me wrong, I'm down there a lot and I'm watching the helmeted geckos and seeing or the scorpion tails, and seeing how they're feeding and where they like to feed and where they're sitting and things like that. But in the last few weeks, I've been thinking maybe I need to scale down so I can give more time to every single one of these animals, like Susie, because she only has one tank, so all of her attention is focused laser on that one tank, and she's doing such a great job in watching the behaviors of her one animal or two animals or whatever. What a great point.
But
Yep.
you're unique too, though. I mean, I wouldn't exactly put you in the boat, and God knows I wasn't referring to you by any means. But you
No,
are.
no, 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 no.
You don't just go out and buy 100 geckos. You have over 25 years studied a species, learned a species, taken on a new species. Doesn't mean you forgot about what you learned. You took that and you started teaching. Now, teaching about the one species you learned keeps it on your mind, and you're still refreshing yourself every day. You get to teach someone about something you already have. Well, I've
Yeah.
been watching you for years. I know what you do. It's a brilliant thing that you do. Again, super unique, super unique. You're not even close to the in that realm of people that have more than they can. And again, that's not necessarily what I meant. I was really trying to just
Yep.
get out that every person matters. There's so many kids out there that, again, and I'm not going to talk about social media, but almost get bullied sometimes, right? They'll ask a question and these people will rip them a new one. Like, dude, dog, you're a grown, excuse my language, you're a grown ass man talking to a little girl. First of all, check yourself, right? Because I will give you back what you're giving this little child, right? You're talking to a child, you're going to scar her from ever saying another thing in a group again. Like, she's learning, right? Like, people, so you're definitely not even on that spectrum. It's just that little girl matters as much as that man who's sitting there laughing at her, telling her she knows nothing.
Yep.
It's
I think you're spot on, and I probably said it the wrong way, but my point was hoping to build on your point that everyone that keeps one or two animals, because you have the time and you have such a passion for that one or two animals, believe me, you're watching and learning more from your animals than probably me or anybody else that has more than 5 or 6 or 10 animals. Bless you for watching, but please, if you see behaviors, if you have questions, bring them up, and bring them up to good people like you guys, Joe Hupp, bring them to me, and there will be no bullying involved,
Yeah,
period.
yeah. Send a DM. If you don't feel comfortable saying it on the Facebook group, send a person a DM. Like I get
Yeah.
DMs all the time about how do you take care of chauffeurs, and I'm like, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm still going. I'm like, okay, whoa, 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 whoa. Like
You're a
if I
crazy
wake
man
up and look at my
in the
phone,
morning.
well, I have to just because. So with my job, I have to look at my phone at like 2, 3 in the morning because I'll get text. I'm sick. I'm not coming in. Then I got to kind of figure out a game plan. So then I'm looking, scrolling, like okay, answer this question. Oh, this employee called out. Let me go ahead and do this. Oh, got another question on IG, another one on Facebook. All right, cool. Now go back to sleep for a couple hours.
Jason, if you look on your phone, right about here is the off button. If you press
I
that,
can't.
your
I
phone will go
can't do
off,
it.
and you can get some much needed rest. I can see
Yeah,
the
I can't.
bags under your eyes right now.
5 years. I'm just afraid
Yeah,
to turn it back on. I don't know if I know how to turn my phone back on if it went
yeah,
off.
yeah. That's
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 me.
Well, it's the corporate world, man. Like
I
I work for a corporation and I'm salary, so I'm 24/7. I'm available. It sucks,
I
but it's the way of life right now.
I know it too well, and I'll share just real quick. I know we're thousands of miles off topic now, but anyways, I was in the corporate world for years and years and years, and I was the person just like you. 2 o'clock in the morning, shoot, now what do I do? Okay, let me get some people on the phone, and at 2 o'clock in the morning, let's talk this through, because at 6 o'clock, when everybody comes in, this problem will not exist, right?
Right? Yep.
So yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, it's hard, but you adjust your life and you live it, and you
Oh yeah.
figure out ways to live around that, I think. But
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I
like I
tell you
said,
what, once you're retired, Jason, once you're retired, it's like, what, 2 o'clock in the morning phone call? I don't remember that world at all. It's so
yeah.
far in the
No, it'll just
past.
be all geckos,
It's all
all
geckos,
reptiles.
man.
Yeah, I might be going to sleep at like 2, 3 in the morning because after I'll be working in the room so long.
It's all
Yeah,
2 o'clock in the morning is all Gecko Exchange podcast. Okay, I've got 2 hours to watch this. Cool.
yep. I was listening to one of our episodes when I was Ubering today. I was like, all right, let's see how I sound on this thing. Let's see. But I mean, we're pretty much done with the whole gecko stuff. So I got my one last question actually is, so I mean, you're OG in the hobby, right? And what have been some of your biggest failures, and what kind of experiences have you learned from those?
Oh my gosh. There's so many. I have a list. Let me send you my spreadsheet of all my failures. I think it's. I don't know if it. I think the size is too big for me to send it, but let me give it a try. Seriously, let me relate one like immediately. This happened this spring, and it really hit hard. So Joe Hupp, I had him on a couple of years ago, and I remember bits. I remember a lot of our conversation, but I remember pieces being more important than other pieces. One was he keeps fish tanks in his facility to increase humidity. Wow.
Yep.
He changes the there you go. He changes the D3 measurements per all the animals. I don't. So I've changed some things. I don't keep fish tanks, but I miss far more than I used to. He does there are a couple of other things. One of the biggest things is resources. This was the big one for me, but I'll talk about another one in just a second. But resources, and we talked about, hey Joe, what's your next animal that you're getting in that you really want? What's that number one on your wish list? I don't have one. Why not? Everybody has their number. I don't have any resources to manage that. Well, everybody has more space. It's not space. That's not, and he was very nice about it. It's not space. It's resources, my time. If I bring in one more animal, that means another animal isn't going to get as much time as I can provide right now. Oh my gosh, mind blowing. But another thing that he mentioned was that weekly he goes through and he temperature checks all of his lines, he doesn't check every single, I don't think he said he checks every single, but he checks the lines to make sure everything's up and running and the right. So I started doing that. But this spring, I turned on everything, especially in my leopard room, which includes my Periodora picta. So they were in kind of brumation, and they're in deep brumation. They came up and everything's looking good. I should be getting eggs in 2 weeks. And after about a month, I was getting maybe an egg here, an egg there. Something's wrong. Well, silly me, I know I've got to check that tomorrow. I've got to check temperature. So after another 3 weeks, I finally started checking temperatures. Periodora picta should just breed all the time. It doesn't matter temperature. You can keep them at 31 degrees and they should be breeding like rabbit. No, you can't do that. So in my mind, it's like they should always be breeding. It doesn't matter. And the temperature in the room is increasing. It shouldn't matter. So I checked the temperatures, and sure enough, I had a heat cable running down the back, and it was out. It was dead.
Oh, wow.
So immediately, that weekend, I drilled out holes, and I strung another heat cable on the back, put backing on that tank too, and set it up with the right thermostat and everything. And within 2 weeks, everything was back up. But I lost a good 2 months of breeding Periodora picta. So my projects are now, I'll say I probably lost a third of my season and a third of my eggs and a third of my, 2 or 3 very, very special projects. I'm going to get a third of, or 2/3 of what I probably should have. So there's there's a very key lesson that I learned that now every single week, every line gets checked. And it kind of goes back to what we were saying before. You make one big mistake like that, and you're probably not going to make that same mistake again. So if I could, leave that question with a very major point. When you do something like that, and I feel blessed that I can do this, and I feel like it's a gift. When I do something like this, when I lose an animal because I've done something really, really stupid, I feel like I have the ability to look at that and get really depressed. I get really depressed. I'll say it, to you guys. I get major depressed when I lose an animal. The whole heat for the Periodora picta, I get really sad. That was really a flippin' stupid thing to not check. What are you thinking? You cannot do that. You're running this facility and you do something stupid like that, and I'll go off and I'll watch the Flintstones for about 3 hours and just veg and just beat myself up.
Yeah.
But I feel like I have the gift to then put down the remote. Okay, here's what we're going to do different. So I go from that really sad or really angry at myself to, okay, here's how we're going to not let that ever happen again. So the wheels start grinding again, and here's the plan. And I'll put painter's tape up, or I'll put a reminder on my calendar. I'm going to do something so I never let that happen again. So if anything, self-forgiveness. Everybody's going to make mistakes. Don't get so down on yourself that you can't drop it. Feel bad, feel sad, then start thinking about it and improve and drop it and move on. Move on. Everybody makes mistakes. You made a mistake. I make probably way bigger mistakes than you, viewers. Move on. Self-forgiveness.
All right. Well, contrary to Jason's last question, I want to ask, after all these years, what would you say your greatest success has been?
That's a tough one. Okay. So one thing that we did, a couple of things. I'm going to name two things, but they kind of relate to each other. So I feel like I'm really, really good with space utilization. This is why I never kept dart frogs. If I kept dart frogs, every inch of this house would be filled with dart frogs. Wally, don't you dare keep dart frogs. It's an obsession, kind of, sort of, but it's also more about the space utilization. And I bet you I can get 3 enclosures here instead of just 2. So having said that, one of the big things that I did early on with the Crested Geckos was that I built my own racks. And they're 19 quarts, so it's a great, 2-month to about 6 to 7 month old grow out rack. And these are on just slats for legs. So, you just slat pieces of wood with melamine. I don't like using melamine, but these are like now 15 or 16 years old. Melamine for shelves, a few screws, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4 of these racks, and each one holds about 18 tubs, 19 quart tubs. And they went up, like I just said, 14, 15, 16 years ago, and now they're maybe getting a little bit old, but they still function. I have to put ties to hold them all together, but they're still functioning. A hole in the opening, or a couple of holes, screen, so I can mist, quick mist, and they're all set up the same. So when I have to feed, when I get to feed, I pull up the old dish, I put the new one in the same exact place, and I can do all 4 of these racks in a matter of minutes with a Crested Gecko diet. So, standardization of a process like that, because I knew I was going to have a lot of Crested Geckos. So standard 1, 2, 3, right down the list, right down the line. So I did that, and I have the second thing that I think I did really, really well was I built a couple of racks for baby geckos, and they're 6 quart long enclosures. And again, they're fairly standardized as far as to set up a couple of hides and either dirt or sand, and a feeding dish, and maybe some sphagnum moss for some of our cave geckos, but very, very standard. Heat tape, lights above each one for each shelf. They go on at the same time. They go off at the same time. So those I can, load them up with babies. The hides, a lot of the hides are the egg carton. So after a couple, 3, 4 weeks, they're dirty. Throw them out. Whoops, did I throw out a baby too? Yeah, I threw out a baby too. Get that one back in. Throw out the egg carton, and then, move on to the next one. So very, very standard, easy to go from one to the next, easy to clean. So, babies go from these 6 quarts to their adult homes, or they're sold or whatever. I take a 6 quart, I dump, new egg cartons, new little dishes, and we're ready for the next batch of babies.
I was going to say, I was really hoping, Wally, that you were going to say your greatest success was inspiring Crystal? No, in all actuality, I've watched the video, right? Your son's probably not going to take it over, right? Pretty clear Crystal's going to be the one to take this into the future, you know?
That is your heir apprentice right there.
Because it's hard. She has the knowledge. She'll go downstairs and she'll look at a tank without any label or anything. I'm raising out, an animal, and she'll say, "How are the Chondrodactylus pulitzer doing?" I might have mentioned that one time. How do you know? Where did you move the, viper geckos? Where did the babies go? Well, they grew up, Crystal, and I moved them over to this tank. Oh, okay. So she has the mind to capture all of this information. But I told her, you don't get to take care of the business. I don't pass on the business to you until you go through every tank and clean the gecko poop. And she just gives me that look like, I know.
Yeah.
She does shows, and she's got to be doing gecko poop.
Posted a video or maybe it was pictures of her vending a show, and she was just like mid-conversation at the show, and I'm like, this kid is like, she's gonna be it. She's gonna be like a Zoom Med rep, or like she's gonna be something in this. Like she's.
I think so. If she and one of the things that I did with our kids is, the three boys, the oldest, I started doing shows with, and immediately he was outselling me within probably about 3 or 4 shows, because I do this. I do this all the time with a customer. I talk to the customer, and, oh, by the way, your substrate, and Christopher's like, oh, here's how you care for them. Now let's get to which gecko are you looking at to buy? So he's very direct without being rude. He's a very good salesman. My middle son was behind the table the whole time, counting the money or looking at the supplies. Oh, I need to put 2 more of it. So he was the inventory guy. Tim, our youngest son, came to about 3 or 4 shows, and it was like, I have no interest in being here whatsoever, Dad. I just want to go home. So, a couple shows, and he was out. Tim, that's okay. It's okay. You don't have to come and help at the shows. That's fine. Christopher probably spent about 4 or 5 years, and then one of his first jobs was selling cars. Jordan just likes to be in the inventory thing, and he'll help out a whole lot with the Supreme Gecko, with the inventory and the Supreme isopod chow, making batches of that and doing special things like that. But he doesn't want to be now with the shows, because he has his own life and his own, business and working things. Crystal, my point being that I don't force any of them to do anything. So if Crystal wants to take care of social media and do all the posting, my gosh, that's such a need, right?
I've been trying to get my kids.
God bless. That's awesome.
Right on. So I'm not going to force them, but, just going through it. And she spent, 8 hours or whatever at Schaumburg with us yesterday, and just hearing the conversations and meeting people and seeing how the networking is done and gathering information, and, and she'll spend some time seeing pictures, and it just builds the base. So we get a little bit of business knowledge to her, and the reptile base information, and whatever you want to do, Crystal, is fine. If you want to take care of the business, if you want to take over the business, cool. If not, cool. If you want to help out with social media, wonderful. That's where I need it.
It's a great way to teach, man. All you can do is present opportunity. There can't be no success without opportunity, right? Like, you're giving her the chance. She's clearly, in my, from where I'm sitting, she's absorbing, man. She's absorbing it. She likes it, man. She will be special in this hobby thing. Now, what she does, she'll probably far outshine any of us, being that she's so young, and by the time she gets to our age, it will be her whole life. God bless, man. God bless. That's a beautiful thing, man. One other time I was watching a podcast, and she was of yours or something. She was out somewhere, but she just came on and was just talking and I'm like, this is a child, but brilliant, man. Brilliant networking. Her whole knowing, clients from shows, and knowing all types. just super special, man.
She's a personality, and we asked her in the car going to Schaumburg, driving down to Schaumburg, 2 hour drive, and I said, Crystal, what do you want to see at Schaumburg? And I thought for sure she would say, well, I want to hold a couple of snakes and do this, and she said, I want to meet Illinois Illinois Valley Gecko, and I want to meet Brittany from DAB, and she named off probably 3 people, maybe 4. That's who I want to meet. So in her mind, she's already thinking through I want to talk to these people because this is going to be maybe a place where I don't get to talk to them again. And I want to go to Snake Discoveries and talk to Emily.
That's it. She's going to be HR of Sabrina. She's going to be human resource. She's going to be she's going to handle all of your networking and everything, man. That's super cool, man. That's really cool.
Not a chance. She'll probably get to the age where she moves out, and I say, Crystal, are you going to take over Supreme? No, Grandpa, I'm doing my own business with snakes. That's small potatoes, that Supreme Gecko stuff. You keep that little business. I'm doing snakes, and I'm going to be the biggest snake breeder in the world.
Oh, look, she's still in the hobby. That's all that matters.
That's
right.
Nice.
Someday, listen. If it wasn't for what you exposed her to, God only knows, I mean, I don't want to get into it because it really doesn't matter, but I feel like parenting, good parenting, grandparenting, fathering, mothering, or the lack of is a huge part of what's happened in this country lately. And if we could get all these kids back to us, then we could fix a lot of the problems that are going on in this country, man.
It's a tough point here because every parent has different philosophies. Mine was always lose the battle, win the war. Back and forth a little bit. Christopher, our oldest, was a debater. So he would debate a bit. So eventually I find Christopher. Okay, this time, but listen, the next time it's going to be me making that decision. Okay, Dad. So lose the battle, win the war. Give a little bit, but don't give any on your core values whatsoever. So that's how we always approach things as parents. Be it right or wrong.
You and your wife guys are doing a great job.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right, Wally, where can everybody find you at?
Jason paused. You're moving. Still. Oh, there you go.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? No?
Yeah, there you are. There you are.
You're like pros on my thing.
Oh, damn. Well, Wally, where can everybody find you at right now?
Anything you just said.
I'm frozen. Hold on.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, you totally.
Hold on. I'm just trying to make sure my speaker's working. Can you hear me?
A little bit.
All right, hold on one second. I'm going to disconnect my Bluetooth.
For anybody that's out there that's watching this and may want to ask some information or maybe buy some products or, maybe just tap your head, join your Buy Me a Coffee program, where can everybody find you? Where would be the best place for everyone to reach you?
We have links all over the place. We're doing TikTok, we're doing Instagram, we're doing Facebook, we're doing YouTube. We're just all over the place. We have the store, Supreme Gecko store, supremegecko.com. We have the Buy Me a Coffee, like you said, but everything is under our bio links, but you can find links on Facebook. If you go to Facebook first and look in our bio for Wally Kern, and it's me with our granddaughter, Crystal. I'm wearing a Brewers hat. She's wearing the Cubs hat. Shouldn't have done it like that. I should have done it the other way around. But you can find our information to all of our sites in the Facebook Wally Kern site if you go to the bio.
Okay, guys, and Jason and I will also post links, all of Wally's links down in wherever they get posted, the show notes or clips or whatever.
Thank you, guys.
You know how I feel about Wally. I can't thank you enough. Again, like I said at the beginning, I didn't ever really think there'd be a day I'd get to sit down and have a one-on-one with you at all, let alone twice. One day we're going to sit here and actually talk all about geckos instead of the hobby as a whole. But it's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. Love what you're doing. Respect everything you're doing. Anybody out there that doesn't know, and I don't know how you wouldn't know who Wally is, Supreme Geckos, check him out, man. If you want to learn something, if you want to take away and watch a video and take away something of some substance, check out Wally's pages, man. Check out, he's on every platform you can imagine. I promise you won't be disappointed.
Thank you much. It's again, it's really, really an honor and privilege to be on your show. You guys are doing the right thing. Every show that you provide, you're focusing on one topic or another, and you're laser focused on those topics, and your every show is positive, and it's doing the right thing that we should all look at and do more of in the hobby. Everybody. So thank you very much.
That. Thank you.
Definitely appreciate it.
Right. Well,
got anything to say, Jay, close out?
What's that?
So you have anything you want to close out?
No, I'm gonna say just have a great night, Wally. Appreciate you coming back on again. I said you always got an open door policy with us. Anytime you want to get on, you can come on.
Absolutely.
Anytime you have a topic, if you want a panel discussion, I'm way open to like a feeder, food panel, anything like that. Just ring me up and
Definitely.
And not at 2, Jason. Not at 2:00 though. Okay, not again.
I'll try not to.
Nanette said, Wally, no more of this Jason person calling at 2 a.m. So it's not me. I'm fine with 2 a.m. But Nanette.
Yeah, it's okay. It's all right. All right. Definitely have a great night, Wally, okay?
Thank you, guys. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.